You are mine, growled the Alpha King until he saw the scars the Omega hid in silence. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main characters. Sarah Vale, a young Omega, stood at the edge of the Grand Hall, her heart pounding in her chest. She had always known she was different. Not just because she was Omega, but because something about her never seemed to belong. The others, with their shimmering coats and fiery personalities, easily found mates. But Sarah? She had never been chosen. Today, during the mating ceremony, her hopes hung by a thread. The room was filled with alphas, betas, and the familiar scent of tension that filled the air before such an important event. Each Omega was to be presented in front of the Alpha King, the most powerful figure in the land, to be either accepted or rejected. As Sarah stepped forward, the whispers followed her like a shadow. She was known for being quiet, for keeping to herself. Her only true gift was her ability to heal others, a talent that often went unnoticed in a society that valued strength and dominance. Her pale, freckled skin and soft brown hair seemed almost out of place in this world of powerful wolves. The Alpha King, Kale Thornridge, sat at the head of the hall, his sharp silver eyes scanning the room. His reputation as a ruthless, cold leader preceded him. No one had ever dared question his rule, and no one had ever made him wait. Yet, today, his gaze lingered for a moment longer than usual on Sarah. She felt his eyes on her, the weight of his stare making her heart race. The ceremony continued, and one by one, Omegas were presented and accepted. But Sarah stood, waiting, her hands shaking as she fought the urge to run. The moment came. The Alpha King was expected to make his decision. His gaze shifted to her, cold and indifferent. He spoke. His voice booming across the room, "You are mine," he growled, but then, his eyes narrowed. "Until I saw the scars you hid in silence." The crowd fell silent, shocked. Sarah's breath hitched. She had never expected this. She had never thought that the king, so feared and respected, would even notice the scars on her wrists, scars that she had kept hidden for years, reminders of the battles she fought within herself. Kale stood, his expression unreadable, as he approached Sarah. The weight of his presence seemed to consume the entire room. The other alphas watched in silence, their eyes flicking between Sarah and the king, unsure of what was happening. Kale's cold demeanor softened as he reached out, his hand brushing against Sarah's skin, where the scars lay hidden. He felt the rawness, the pain she had endured. "You've suffered," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Sarah could barely breathe as the king's touch lingered on her. She had never expected this. The Alpha King, the ruler of all, was looking at her, not with disdain or disgust, but with something else, something she could not quite place. For the first time, Sarah felt as though she wasn't invisible. She wasn't the broken Omega. She wasn't the one who had been rejected, ignored, and cast aside. She was something more, something that Kale Thornridge had never expected. She was his mate. The room remained still as the Alpha King finally spoke again, his voice commanding, yet softer than before. "You are mine now," he said, his tone filled with authority and something Sarah had never expected, genuine care. She wasn't sure if this was real or just a dream, but in that moment, everything changed. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen, and she was finally accepted. "I had never imagined that the Alpha King would speak to me like this. I had never imagined that the pain I had carried in silence for so long would be acknowledged." Standing before him, I felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, confusion, and something else I couldn't name. For years, I had been told I was weak, broken, invisible. I had accepted it, even believed it to be true. But in that moment, as Kale Thornridge stood before me, something shifted. "You've suffered," he murmured, his voice soft yet commanding. I didn't know how to respond. I had always kept my scars hidden, even from myself. They were a part of me I had learned to bury deep inside, where no one could see. But now, the Alpha King, the most powerful man in the realm, had seen them. His gaze was no longer cold or indifferent. There was something in his eyes, something that made my heart race. Could it be sympathy? Empathy? "I can feel your pain, Sarah," he said, his hand still resting on my wrist, where the scars lay hidden beneath my sleeves. "But you are stronger than you realize. I see that now." His words, though gentle, cut through me like a blade. I had never thought of myself as strong. I had never allowed myself to believe it. But the way he spoke to me, as though I had some value, made something inside me stir, something I thought I had long forgotten. The room was still, the air thick with anticipation. The other Omegas, the Alphas, and Betas in the hall were all watching us. No one dared to speak, no one dared to interrupt. It was as if the world had paused, waiting for what would happen next. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "What do you mean?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Kale's gaze softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something vulnerable in his eyes, something that didn't belong to the king I had heard so much about, the king who was feared by all. "You are mine now, Sarah. And I will not let anyone or anything take you away from me." His words were filled with authority, but there was also a sense of protectiveness, a promise that he would guard me, even from the world that had once turned its back on me. I didn't know what to say. I had been rejected so many times before, by my own pack, by those I had trusted. How could I believe that the Alpha King, a man I had never truly known, would protect me? But there was something in his voice, in the way he spoke to me, that made me believe him. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Sarah," he continued. "Not anymore. You are not broken. You are not weak. And you are certainly not invisible." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within me. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. "You'll be by my side, always," Kale added, his hand still resting on my wrist. "Together, we will face whatever comes our way." His declaration sent a shiver down my spine. I had never imagined that my life would take such a turn. From being the invisible Omega, the one who had always been overlooked, to being seen by the Alpha King as someone worthy of his protection, his attention, and, most unexpectedly, his love. As I looked up at him, I felt a new sense of purpose ignite within me. I wasn't just the broken Omega anymore. I was Sarah Vale, the one who would stand beside him. And together, we would carve a new path for ourselves in this world. I stood there, still processing what had just happened. The weight of Kale's words hung heavily in the air, filling the room with an intense silence. The Alpha King had just declared me his mate, in front of all those who had once mocked me. The sting of rejection that I had carried for so long was finally starting to fade, replaced by something unfamiliar, hope. It felt strange to stand in the middle of that grand hall, no longer the invisible Omega but someone who was seen, someone who had a place beside him. Kale's presence was overwhelming, his power radiating in every direction, yet there was an undeniable warmth in his gaze that made my heart flutter. I had always dreamed of being loved, of being accepted for who I was, but I never expected it to come from the most feared man in the realm. "Come with me," Kale's voice broke through my thoughts, soft yet commanding. I nodded, unable to find my voice. His hand reached for mine, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. His touch was warm, reassuring, and it grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. We walked together through the hall, the weight of the eyes watching us no longer felt as heavy. I was with him now. As we reached the exit, Kale turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, "you've been through much, and I know this is all new to you. But I will protect you. No one will hurt you again. You are mine now." My heart raced at his words. I didn't know if I could believe him completely. After all, I had been let down so many times before. But there was something in his eyes, something deep and sincere, that made me want to believe. I nodded again, though my voice failed me. "Thank you," I whispered, not sure if I had said the words he needed to hear or if I was just trying to convince myself. Kale squeezed my hand gently, his gaze softening. "You don't need to thank me," he said, his tone softer than I had ever heard it before. "I promised you I would protect you, and I will. As we walked through the palace halls, the silence between us felt comfortable, almost peaceful. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. The man who had once been a figure of fear and mystery now felt like someone I could trust, someone I could lean on. But deep down, I knew that trust would take time. We had only just begun this journey together. The night grew darker, and we arrived at a large, ornate door that led into a private chamber. Kale paused before opening it, looking at me with a mixture of determination and tenderness. "This is your room now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You are safe here." I felt a wave of emotion rise in my chest, gratitude, fear, excitement, everything mixed into one overwhelming feeling. It was hard to process everything that had happened, but in that moment, I knew one thing for certain: my life was no longer the same. I was no longer just the broken Omega. I was someone's mate. And with that came a responsibility, a future, and maybe, just maybe, happiness. As the door closed behind us, I stepped into the room, my heart still racing from everything that had unfolded. Kale's hand still rested on mine, and I knew that wherever this path would lead, we would walk it together. The room was quieter than I had ever imagined it could be. The soft flicker of candlelight cast gentle shadows on the walls, and the silence felt almost sacred, as though the world outside had been momentarily forgotten. I stood there, in the room Kale had given me, still trying to understand the weight of the words we had exchanged. "You are mine now." I could still hear his voice in my head, and something inside me stirred each time I thought of it. But the room, with its lavish furniture and velvet curtains, only reminded me that I was still the same Sarah Vale. Nothing about me had truly changed. At least, that's what I thought. "Are you all right?" Kale's voice broke the silence, soft and uncertain. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the light from the hallway. His eyes were soft, almost too gentle for someone of his power. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I'm fine." It was a lie. I wasn't fine. How could I be? Everything was happening so quickly, too quickly for me to process. I had never thought this day would come, that someone like me would ever be chosen. Yet, here I was, in the Alpha King's private chamber, not just as his ward, but as his mate. I wasn't sure how to feel about it. "You're not alone anymore," Kale continued, his voice steady but full of an emotion I couldn't place. He stepped closer, and for the first time, I noticed the subtle tension in his movements. It wasn't fear, but something more complex. "You have me. And I will never let anyone take you from me." His words were sincere, and they hit me harder than I expected. I had always been alone. Even when I was part of the pack, I had never felt truly seen. But now, standing before me was someone who promised not only to see me, but to protect me as well. The enormity of it all was overwhelming. "I don't know what to say," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "You don't have to say anything," Kale replied, his gaze never leaving mine. "Just know that you are mine, and I am yours. This bond we share, it's not just some duty or obligation. It's real." I didn't know how to respond to that. I had never believed in destiny, or fate, or whatever force had brought us together. But in that moment, as his hand reached for mine, I felt something shift. It was subtle, like the quietest of whispers, but it was there. A promise. A connection that went beyond words. He touched my hand gently, and I felt a warmth spread through me. A warmth I hadn't known in years. It wasn't just physical warmth, but something deeper, something that seemed to reach into the very core of who I was. "This is just the beginning," Kale said, his voice soft and reassuring. "There's still much for us to learn, much for us to face together. But we will do it together. No matter what comes." The words brought me a sense of calm I didn't expect. I had never known such reassurance before. In a world that had rejected me, in a life that had always felt uncertain, Kale's words were the anchor I had been searching for. "I won't leave you," he continued, his eyes intense and sincere. "And I won't let anyone hurt you." For the first time in my life, I believed him. I had been broken by the world, by people who didn't care, by a pack that had cast me aside. But now, with Kale beside me, I felt a glimmer of hope, a spark of something I thought was long lost. I wasn't alone anymore. And together, we would face whatever the future had in store. I woke up the next morning to a stillness that was almost unnatural. The soft light of dawn filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long shadows across the room. It was strange to wake up in a place that felt both unfamiliar and strangely comforting. I had spent so many years feeling invisible, like no one could truly see me. But now, everything was different. I was seen. I was chosen. I was Kale's mate. The weight of it all settled in my chest, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. I was no longer the broken Omega, the one who had been cast aside. But was I ready for this? Ready to stand beside the Alpha King, to be a part of his world? The sound of soft footsteps echoed outside the door, followed by a gentle knock. My heart skipped a beat as Kale's voice came through the wood, calm and steady. "Sarah, are you awake?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath. "I'm awake," I replied, my voice a little shakier than I intended. The door creaked open, and Kale stepped inside, his presence as commanding as ever. He was dressed in a simple tunic, the fabric not as regal as what he usually wore, but still fitting for a king. He gave me a soft smile, his silver eyes warm with something I hadn't seen in them before, gentleness. "Good morning," he said, his voice low and soothing. "How did you sleep?" I nodded, unsure of how to answer. It was different. But I'm okay. Kale didn't seem to mind my hesitation. He walked over to the window and pulled the curtains aside, letting the light of the morning flood the room. "This is the beginning of a new chapter for both of us," he said, his gaze still on the horizon. "And I promise you, I'll be by your side through it all. You don't have to face anything alone anymore." His words, though simple, carried a weight that settled in my heart. He wasn't just saying these things to comfort me, he meant them. He was here for me. I had spent my life feeling like an outsider, like I didn't belong anywhere. But here, in this room, in this moment, I felt like I finally had a place. "Thank you," I whispered, the words feeling both too small and too big at the same time. "You don't have to thank me," Kale replied, turning to face me. "This is where we both belong. Together." I looked at him, at the man who had once been a figure of power and fear, but now seemed so different to me. His eyes, though still filled with the weight of his responsibilities, now held a tenderness that made him seem more human, more real. "I never thought I would be here," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I would be chosen by someone like you." Kale stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. "You were never invisible to me, Sarah. I saw you, even when no one else did." His words sent a shiver through me. How could someone like him see someone like me? But in that moment, I understood. He had always seen me, maybe not in the way I had wanted, but he had seen my worth. And that was more than I had ever hoped for. "You're not just an Omega," Kale continued, his voice low and filled with conviction. "You're my mate, and nothing in this world will change that." His words echoed in my mind, and for the first time, I felt truly at peace with who I was. I wasn't broken. I wasn't invisible. I was Sarah Vale, the mate of the Alpha King. And together, we would face whatever came next. The days that followed were filled with a new kind of uncertainty, one that was different from the isolation I had known. Kale, the Alpha King, had kept his promise. He was there with me, every step of the way, guiding me through the changes in my life. I had never been one to rely on anyone, but with Kale, it felt as though I was being given a chance to finally breathe, to finally live without the weight of rejection. He was patient with me, always gentle, yet his presence was undeniable. It was hard for me to believe that this was my reality. Every morning, he would join me for breakfast, his calm demeanor providing a sense of stability that I had never known. His conversations were always thoughtful, his voice reassuring as he spoke of the kingdom, of the responsibilities he carried, and of our future. As much as I tried to focus on those conversations, my mind often wandered back to the question I had been struggling with: was I truly ready for this life? Ready to be the mate of the Alpha King? The weight of the crown, the expectations, and the responsibilities of ruling were far beyond what I had ever imagined. I had never asked for power or prestige, and yet here I was, suddenly thrust into a position I wasn't sure I deserved. One morning, as we sat together by the large window overlooking the palace grounds, I could no longer hold the question in. "Kale," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "how do you do it? How do you carry all of this?" I gestured to the world outside, the grandeur of the palace, the endless duties he had to fulfill as king. "How do you bear it all?" Kale looked at me for a long moment, his silver eyes thoughtful. He set his cup down slowly before replying. "I don't do it alone, Sarah." His voice was steady, filled with a quiet strength. "And neither do you. We carry this together." His words resonated deep within me, though a part of me still wondered if I was truly capable of standing by his side in the way he deserved. It was then that Kale reached out, his hand gently brushing mine, a gesture of comfort, of reassurance. "You've already shown more strength than you realize," he continued. "You are my mate for a reason. I wouldn't have chosen you if I didn't believe in you." His words stirred something within me, something that made me feel both small and incredibly powerful at the same time. It was a strange feeling, one that I wasn't sure how to handle. I had spent so long doubting myself, wondering if I was enough, and now here I was, being told by the Alpha King himself that I was more than enough. It was hard to accept, but somewhere deep inside, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could do this. I could be the mate he needed. I could stand beside him, not just as a companion, but as an equal. Later that afternoon, we took a walk through the gardens. The flowers were in full bloom, their vibrant colors filling the air with sweet fragrances. I had always loved gardens, there was something peaceful about them, something that calmed the mind and soothed the soul. As we walked, I found myself opening up to him more than I ever had before. I spoke of my fears, my doubts, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could speak freely without fear of judgment. Kale listened intently, never interrupting, his expression soft and understanding. When I finished, he looked at me, his gaze steady and unwavering. "We will face whatever comes together, Sarah," he said. "You don't have to carry your burdens alone anymore. You have me, and I have you. And together, there is nothing we cannot face." His words were like a balm to my soul, and for the first time since our bond had begun, I truly believed him. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't broken. I was whole. I was with him. And together, we would build a future neither of us had ever imagined. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, I was ready to walk it with him by my side. The days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, I began to settle into this new life, this new reality. Kale remained by my side, a constant presence that I hadn't realized I needed until now. The world around us seemed to hum with the energy of change. We were no longer just the Alpha King and his Omega, we were something more, something built on trust and understanding, even if I still struggled to fully grasp it. The palace, with its towering walls and expansive halls, was no longer just a symbol of power and fear. It had become a home, a place where I no longer felt like an outsider. Kale had made sure of that. He had shown me that there was space for me here, not just as his mate, but as someone who mattered. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the garden, I found myself walking alongside Kale, his hand brushing against mine. It was a quiet moment, the kind where words weren't needed to understand the depth of the connection we shared. The soft rustle of the leaves and the distant sound of water trickling from a fountain filled the air, creating a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in years. "You're quieter than usual," Kale remarked, his voice gentle as always. I glanced at him, noticing the concern in his silver eyes. He had a way of seeing through me, of noticing even the smallest shift in my demeanor. "I was just thinking," I replied, my voice low. "About what?" he asked, his gaze never leaving me. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "About the future. About what it means to be your mate, to stand beside you. I've never really known what that feels like." Kale stopped walking, turning to face me. His expression was soft, his gaze full of warmth. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said, his voice steady. "We'll figure it out together. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Sarah. I'm asking you to be yourself. His words struck a chord deep within me. It was a simple request, but one that carried so much weight. I had spent so many years trying to be something I wasn't, trying to fit into a mold that didn't belong to me. But with Kale, I didn't have to be anything other than who I was. I could be myself, and that was enough. "Thank you," I whispered, the words carrying more emotion than I had intended. Kale smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You don't have to thank me. This is who we are now, together." The peace that washed over me in that moment was overwhelming. It was the kind of peace I had never known, the kind I had only dreamed of. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed that everything would be okay. As we continued our walk, the sun set completely, leaving the world bathed in soft moonlight. The stars began to twinkle above us, like 1,000 tiny promises in the night sky. "I'm not perfect," I said quietly, the words feeling right for the first time. "But I'll try. I'll try to be the mate you deserve." Kale's hand found mine again, his grip firm and reassuring. "That's all I've ever wanted," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You're enough, Sarah. You always have been." In that moment, I realized that no matter what the future held, no matter what challenges we would face them together. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what was to come. The weeks passed, and with each day, I felt more and more at ease in this new life. The palace, which once felt so foreign, now felt like home. The halls that had echoed with silence were now filled with laughter, conversation, and the soft rustle of fabric as people moved through the corridors. I had learned the rhythms of the palace, the unspoken rules, and the expectations that came with being the mate of the Alpha King. It was a life I never imagined for myself. But even as I settled into this new world, I still found myself questioning my place in it. I had never been a person who sought attention or desired recognition. I had always preferred to remain in the background, invisible to others. But now, I was the center of attention. The mate of the most powerful man in the kingdom. And as much as I had longed for a sense of belonging, the weight of my new position often left me feeling uncertain. "Sarah, you're quiet today," Kale's voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up to see him standing in the doorway of the study, his silver eyes studying me with concern. His presence was calming, as it always was. I smiled, trying to push away the doubts that lingered in my mind. "I'm just thinking," I replied, my voice soft. Kale raised an eyebrow, his expression gentle. "What about?" I hesitated, unsure of how to express the jumble of emotions swirling inside me. "I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in all of this," I said, motioning to the room around me, to the grand palace, to the life we were building. "I've never been someone who wanted power or influence. I never asked for any of this." Kale stepped into the room, his presence filling the space, his gaze never leaving mine. "You don't have to want power to be important, Sarah. You've already proven that you are more than enough. You are my mate, and that's what matters." His words were simple, but they resonated deep within me. I had spent so many years doubting myself, wondering if I was truly worthy of love and respect. But Kale had never doubted me. He had always believed in me, even when I hadn't believed in myself. "But what if I'm not enough?" I whispered, the fear I had buried deep inside surfacing once again. "What if I can't be the mate you need?" Kale walked over to me, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he were giving me the time I needed to process my thoughts. When he reached me, he gently cupped my face in his hands, his touch warm and reassuring. "You are enough," he said softly, his silver eyes locking with mine. "You've always been enough. You don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to prove anything. All you need to do is be yourself." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath as his words washed over me. For so long, I had tried to be someone I wasn't, trying to fit into a mold that wasn't meant for me. But with Kale, I didn't have to pretend. I could just be Sarah. The woman he had chosen. The woman who was enough. When I opened my eyes, I saw the sincerity in Kale's gaze, the deep trust and affection that he held for me. I had never known a love like this. "I'm still learning," I said quietly, my voice trembling slightly. "But I'll try, Kale. I'll try to be the mate you deserve. Kale smiled, his fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. You don't have to try. Sarah. You already are. His words, simple as they were, brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't perfect. But with Kale by my side, I didn't have to be. We would face whatever came our way, together. And that, I realized, was enough. I was enough. The days had become a blur of routine and responsibility, but one thing remained constant: Kale. The Alpha King was always by my side, supporting me in ways I had never imagined. The palace, once intimidating and vast, now felt like a place where I belonged, not just because of its grandeur, but because of the connection I shared with him. There were moments when we would simply sit together in the quiet of the evening, our words unspoken but understood. It was a rare kind of peace that I hadn't thought possible in such a tumultuous life. Yet, as I grew more comfortable in this new role, I found myself grappling with an unexpected realization: this life wasn't just about being Kale's mate, it was about finding my own place in the world. It was a difficult concept to embrace, but I knew I had to. I wasn't just Sarah, the Omega from a forgotten pack anymore. I was Sarah Vale, the mate of the Alpha King, and that carried with it a responsibility, a weight, that I wasn't fully prepared for. One afternoon, as the sun began to set over the kingdom, I walked through the palace gardens, deep in thought. The flowers bloomed brightly in every corner, the soft breeze carrying their sweet fragrance through the air. But even in the beauty of the moment, my mind was restless. What's troubling you? Kale's voice broke through my thoughts, his presence behind me almost silent, but undeniable. I turned to find him standing there, his silver eyes studying me with that same warmth and concern he always carried. I'm just thinking, I replied, my voice softer than I intended. Kale stepped closer, his expression not one of impatience, but of understanding. About what? He asked, his voice gentle. I hesitated, unsure of how to express the doubts that had been plaguing me. About everything, I said, my voice barely a whisper. About being the mate of the Alpha King. About living up to what people expect of me. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, Kale. The vulnerability in my words surprised even me, but it was the truth. For all the peace and love I had found in him, there was a lingering fear in the back of my mind. What if I couldn't be the partner he deserved? What if I failed? Kale was quiet for a moment, his gaze soft but unwavering. He reached out, his hand gently brushing mine in a reassuring gesture. You don't have to be perfect, Sarah, he said softly, his voice steady. You just have to be you. And that's enough for me. His words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I didn't need to have all the answers. I didn't need to be someone I wasn't. I just needed to be present, to stand beside him as his mate, and to face whatever came our way together. I'm here, always, Kale continued, his hand still holding mine. We're in this together, no matter what. I smiled, the weight in my chest lifting. It wasn't about living up to some grand expectation or fulfilling a role. It was about us, standing side by side, facing the future with open hearts and minds. And for the first time, I truly believed that everything would be okay. We didn't need to have it all figured out right away. All we needed was each other. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Kale and I stood there together, no words needed, just the quiet promise of a future built on trust, love, and the unspoken bond that had brought us together. And for once, I felt ready to embrace that future, whatever it held.